Welcome to Architects of Now. And I'm so honored and excited to introduce today's speaker, Tiffany Carole, who is my teacher and just the most beautiful, humble, compassionate, and wise woman. She is a cultural midwife and an illuminator of the embryonic and primordial. She's a licensed acupuncturist and a teacher of teachers. And she works with essential oils in a really novel and exciting way. And she's here today to share with us the beautiful case for essential oils for end-of-life care. And I just want to welcome you, Tiffany, from my heart to yours. And I'm so happy that you're here and that you're willing to share this meaningful work with our audience. So I would love to start off with a question, perhaps, of how essential oils can really support both caregivers and the person in transition.
Good question. First, thank you, Jeanette. Thank you for the introduction and for the love and the appreciation, the acknowledgement, and also for putting your heart and your energy into this project. I know that when it first started coming up, it was pre-pandemic time, and then we had the COVID pandemic hit, and so much has been in flux, and the fact that you didn't just, like, you stayed with this because you felt the need for it. And now, like we were talking about before recording, it's now more, we need it now more than ever. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I liked something you said in the introduction piece, which was Tiffany's here. I think you said it. Tiffany's here to make a case for essential oils in end of life care, and I think that would be a good place to start in terms of just actually laying just a little bit of foundation about how and why essential oils make sense for end of life care. And I think that for anybody who's listening, you have whatever your experience is with essential oils. It might be anything from, oh yeah, that's what they use at spas to help you feel good, to maybe you have really direct personal experience with how essential oils have shifted your life. I know I certainly have lots of direct personal experience of how essential oils have changed my life. And then we have everything in between, what people have experienced. Oh, I use them, I diffuse them in my house to purify the air or to set the mood. And so this idea that essential oils could be used effectively and thoughtfully in end of life care is an interesting and compelling idea. So there's many different ways to think about essential oils and how we use essential oils. And I think if for those of us that have a Western mind or a science-oriented mind, I say like a things in space, a stuff mind, then we might think about the oils in terms of their chemistry. And we think about oils in terms of, that they're antimicrobial, this kind of thing, which is important right now too. But there's also, in addition to the biochemistry of the oils, there's the essence of the plant. And just like I'm sitting here and looking at you in your eyes, in your amazing face, and I feel the essence of you come through your eyes and come through your heart. And it has a particular impact on me. And, for anyone watching, it's like, if you find yourself in an end of life care situation, just your presence is part of the medicine. I say medicine with a capital M, is part of the medicine that is being offered. And essential oils carrying the plant spirit can connect with you and support you, and also help you to find or connect to resources or natural capacities in yourself that maybe you have a hard time connecting to, or you don't know how to connect to, or in end of life situations where a lot of fear comes up, you disconnect from. And then you add that. I'm going to give some specific examples so it's really grounded in a few minutes. But when you add that oil in, so that plant spirit meets your spirit, you have a sort of amplification of all things good, true, and beautiful about you, about the situation, and also in regards to the person that you are getting to share this sacred space with. So primarily, as I speak about using oils in end of life care, I'm not as much focused on the chemistry of the oils or the biochemistry of the oils, not because I don't care about that. I love that part, but it's because when we go into the realms of end of life care, it's poignant and sacred and in some ways ungraspable with words. And the holistic nature of a plant spirit that comes through in an oil can support a process or a movement of emotion or a shifting of experience in ways that are actually hard to put into words. I'm going to do my best and I'll share examples so we can. But I also encourage anyone who's watching to just try and then see for yourself. Don't take my word for it.
I love that trying piece because the experiential awareness that comes through just takes the knowledge piece and makes it more embodied so that we can receive it and we can process it and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
So good, huh? So shall I, my thought was to talk about, to have some anchor pieces of maybe perhaps 3 different oils, depending on time, that I find really especially supportive for end of life. Does that sound good? And I can even do I could even do a screen share to share a little chart that I have for a couple of oils. You might have to, I think I can even do it, a screen share from here. Yeah.
I think you can. Yeah.
Okay, so first I'll just ask a question for those who are watching. When you think of oils, essential oils, in your knowledge, whatever that, or your connection with oils, whatever that might be, what oils come to your mind that you think, oh, it feels like this would be really supportive in end of life? I don't even know why, but I feel like this would be really supportive. Yeah, just see which pop to mind. Good. Now, whatever it was that came to mind for you, there's a reason, and trust that and explore that. I'm going to talk about a few specific ones, but it by no means that it's only these oils that are supportive for end of life. I really think that you could, I'm looking at my little box of oils here, and I'm certain that I could pick out any one here and share how and why that could be helpful for end of life. I find in my experience, which is fairly limited in end of life, I've been actively with 2 people that made their transition while I was with them. I came to the scene of an accident when someone was making their transition as I approached. And then more of my experience is supporting other caregivers, other teachers, and other healthcare workers in the work that they do in hospice. And I have quite a lot of experience with that. So I get to hear lots of stories about what is seen and what's experienced. And then I have these nice feedback loops where I'll hear what's experienced and what the desires are. I'll share a little bit, like maybe try this oil on this point, and then they do that, and then they say, oh, this is what happened, and it was incredible. So based on that knowledge, my own personal, my clinical, and then the extension out of that is from, that's the background behind what I'm sharing with you. So a big one that a big one, right, is this quelling of fear, the quelling of fear and the opening up and inviting in a greater space, almost like widening the container that holds, we could say, the space for the transition. So we all have within us a fear of death. It's innate in the impulse for life, is the impulse to resist death or to avoid death. And that's just it's a facet we all have in common. Some people experience it more strongly than others. And so when we're with someone that's making their transition, they may be in fear, active fear about transitioning, and we may be also activated by that fear, especially if it's a family member or a loved one. You know, we have our own, we may really just not want to see them go. And there's fear around seeing loved ones suffer. We don't want to see we really don't want to, you know, our hearts feel it. We don't want to see anyone suffer. So there can become just normal, very normal fear. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I like to look at is, how do we allow the space for the fear to be there, but we counteract the contracting forces of the fear so that we can keep the container spacious, right? So transform the fear so it's a little less sticky, and then open up and expand the container so that it can hold the space for everything, for all the emotions, for all of the experience unfolding, right? There is an oil that I just love for how it immediately creates a really big, luscious, soft, comforting container that can hold everything, and that's rose. Yeah, pure rose. And I think of rose, it's like an emblem for Mother Mary, if you resonate with Mother Mary as a deity, um, and as a symbol, really, also of compassionate grace, pure compassionate grace, pure compassionate acceptance. Because I'm sure that you've experienced that we can, when we're in the expansiveness of pure compassionate grace, we can hold all of it. We can hold the deeply uncomfortable. We can hold the extreme suffering. We can hold major anxiety and fear. Like, all of it can be there. And when I say hold, I mean we're not in opposition to it. Because when we're in opposition to whatever it is, the fear, say, or the worry of suffering of a loved one, when we're in opposition to it, what happens? It actually grows. The energy of that opposition grows. So you bring in something like rose, the energy of Mother Mary, which is this broad, vast, compassionate acceptance of all of it, all of it, all of it. And then you don't have to effort from your mind and say, okay, Tiffany, stop being so fearful now, or it's okay, you know, I know they're suffering now, but soon they'll be out of their pain. All of that's fine. But, you know, if you can be lifted out of that mental scape and just relax into the pure presence, then your medicine with a capital M gets to be there in full force. I would say for me, it's like rose allows me to show up in full force. Full presence is probably a better way to say it, full presence. So a couple things about rose. It is a very expensive oil, and for that reason you see it adulterated a lot. So you want to make sure that you get it from a company, a brand that you trust. And a lot of companies do something really cool, which is that they dilute it to a 10 or 15% strength, so it makes it more affordable. to have. So I recommend that. If you go to look for rose, you hear me talking, you go Google rose and you see it's like $200 a bottle. Look for a diluted rose, and you should be able to find a really lovely rose, 10 or 15% dilution in a 5 ml bottle for a reasonable price. And then when you have the rose, let's talk about where to put it and what to do with it. So Jeanette knows because she and I have done some work together over the years and studies, and there's a technique that I teach and encourage people to do in working with the oils. It's called aroma point therapy. And all it is placing the essential oil on a specific acupoint or over a chakra zone. And so with rose, I recommend just placing it right over the heart. And in fact, I'll show you. Is it okay if I go to screen share? Okay. Let's see, I've got it here for us. See there. Oops, that's lung 1. Hold on, let me go. And that's heart 7. We're going to talk about that one later. There we go. Can you see this, CV17, Jeanette? Okay. Yeah. So this point is right over the heart chakra. If you find the level of the nipples and you go about an inch higher than that on the center of your sternum, it's right there. And you can take a drop of your diluted rose and put it right on that point. By the way, you can do this on the person who is making their transition, but also you can just do it on yourself. You can just do it on yourself, and it actually aids the person making their transition just as it's aiding you. And I'll often have family members who have a loved one who's transitioning do this on themselves to aid the whole picture, the person who's transitioning plus them. And that's how it works. You're actually treating the entire field. So you're going to apply that 1 drop over CV17, and you're going to hold it with just a light touch. This is really important. You're not pushing in like a acupressure. It's just a contact on that point. And then you're going to hold it for 1 to 3 minutes. And just, this might be a great opportunity. I feel like, Jeanette, you might have talked to them, or another speaker's talked about breath work during transitions.
Yes.
So this could be a nice time to do a bit of breath work, visualization, or just nothing, just a nothing, just like go into the empty space of just allowing while you're touching there. The name of this point is called Primordial Child, which I also really, really love, because in some ways the end of life, as we're exiting, mirrors the beginning of life. There's a lot of resonance between those two. So in a way, it's like we're supporting that transition out by also touching in on the resonance of what we come in with, our primordial child. I want to share the rose summary chart here with you. This is, can you see this one, the rose summary chart? I might have to.
I'm not seeing it at the moment.
Okay, let me do it again here. Rose, that should do it. Yeah, how's that?
Got it, good.
Okay, this is very dense, I know. This is a chart that's part of a online program that I have called Healing Oil Collective. So if you like this way of thinking about the oils and talking about the oils, you might enjoy that, the Healing Oil Collective. This one is on rose, and there's a couple things that I wanted to pull out or draw our attention to. And that is, yeah, here we go. On the right-hand side, if you see my cursor, it facilitates the energetic opening and experience of forgiveness. This helps energy to return to its rightful place. There's a phrase that I use in my teaching called schisms. It's about divides between the mind and the body, the head and the heart, and also life and death. All those are really big topics that I won't get into here, but the main thing is to highlight that rose, it really does open up and hold space, that big container. What I love about this fostering the experience of forgiveness is this is especially helpful when family members or loved ones are making their transition. And it brings up a lot. It can bring up regret. It can bring up resentment. And a lot of times as people are making their transition, I've heard from many over the years that say that they really come face to face with those things in their life, what they've been regretful over, what they've had resentment over. And at the end of life, that isn't necessarily the time to try to psychologize what's happening. We're out of that zone, but we can still support the movement and the transformation of our psychology through working with the oils. And it can be as simple as placing that rose over CV17. The second piece, it transmits compassionate acceptance and can facilitate and support the resolution of shame. I find that rose, as people are making their transitions, if there's sticking points for people, those things that that in some fundamental way they're holding on to it, whether it's a person that's not making the transition or a person that's making their transition, you add rose to the mix and just everything softens and everything starts to move into its natural movement. And this third piece about engendering bliss and peacefulness and protection, I have had direct experience and have many reports back to me from other healthcare providers that I've shared this with, that share then their experience with me, that they can be in an end of life situation. Things can be tense between family members or within the person that's making their transition because they're in so much pain. And then they use the rose and they say, Tiffany, I can only tell you that the experience was one of bliss. The person was still in pain. There was still whatever was there before was there, but it was all held within something that could be described as a bliss bubble. So this last piece, rose is very helpful for life-death schisms within the dying process itself, both for the person passing and for their loved ones. So what this means in a nutshell is that that fundamental fear that we have, the really thick, deep fear that we have that death is the end, the end, you know, the end with a capital E-N-D, that fear can very much be resolved and at least softened with rose, at least softened, so that it doesn't feel so heavy and final. It can feel soft and embracing instead of heavy and final. Good. So let's go out of the stop share there. So that was rose. Jeanette, do you have any questions or comments that you want to add in about rose? And we could probably do one more, I think, if you want.
Wonderful, thank you. I got goosebumps when you were talking about it. And I wonder, will you share the slides? I can put them in the module so they can have them to download perhaps.
Yes, let's do that.
Thank you.
We could do
Or
the
pictures, yes.
Yeah, we can do the summary chart and then like a point for each oil.
Sweet, thank you. This is so wonderful.
Good. Okay. So I could go on to the next oil. Is that good? Okay. The next oil that I want to talk about is cypress. And it was a close runner up with another oil, sorrow, that I love to talk about in end of life, but I was really tuning into the energy of these times that we're in right now. And cypress feels really important. So why don't I actually go right into the screen share for cypress, and that will anchor us into some cool talking points, and then you'll have this. Well, let's see, not that one. Can you see cypress, Jeanette?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. I want to just pull your attention to this center section here about the mental and emotional uses that cypress works, the interplay between the major themes of death, grief, father issues, and the search for values, all big topics. One of the themes of cypress is that you can see these keywords down here: the return, the initiator of death and everlasting life. So one of the themes in the medicine of cypress is that it helps us remember how to let go. It helps us remember how to let go. That may sound so simple, but if you think about your experience, we're not really taught how to let go. In fact, our cultural bias is one of acquisition. We acquire, 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 produce, produce, produce. We are unhelpfully skewed towards acquisition and production with a blind spot, and I would say even a fundamental disconnect to the letting go and the composting, the honoring of things dying, the honoring of things dying, because death is always connected to life. You don't have life without death, and you don't have death without life. They are a continual and infinite cycle, and we see that in nature. The fall leaves fall to the ground, they break down, and they become part of that ecosystem in the soil that allows for the next year's growth. So here we are, not taught how to let go. We're taught how to, in fact, if somebody says to me, let go, the first thing I want to do is grab it. And I think about going through the clothes in my closet to get rid of them. I put them all in a pile, and then I go to give them to someone. And as I hold it up to that person to show it to them, immediately I want to take it back. So here we could use some support in remembering that letting go, like the allowing of something to drop, is just as natural as the allowing of something to come into being. And in fact, if we keep just focusing on things coming into being without allowing the things going out of being, we become really imbalanced, quite imbalanced. So Cypress can help the person that's making their transition. It can help them to energetically let go, let go. Now, please know that using Cypress on a point is not going to make a person die or push them, further into the active death process. It's nothing like that. It's a very subtle energy dynamic that basically the way you'll see it manifest is that they begin to relax more into the transition process. There is less and less clutching or clinging. And at a certain point, that's such a humane, gorgeous gift to offer someone, is the energetic reminder that they know how to let go, just like we know how to release the breath without having to think about it each time. Yeah. So there's a few things to point out here. Yeah, kind of in a summary, this part about the chakras is how it's helping us to release the fear around death and the fear around letting go. Also survival related fears. Again, you could think about this in terms of you being the caregiver or the person that's making the transition, because both are facing letting go stuff. And then over here, under the schism power, under life-death schism, it eases conscious and unconscious fears in relationship to death and encourages deep ease and radical acceptance of death as a part of life. That's huge. This can allow acceptance of the truth of death as an inherent part of life, not as a negation of life. This gives inspiration to living life to its fullest with more awareness and vigor. There's a kind of interesting piece here too I want to share about the history of Cyprus. Perhaps death and grieving are the most prominent folkloric themes of Cyprus. The ancient Greeks and Romans planted cypress trees in their burial grounds. The ancient Egyptians used cypress wood to construct the sarcophagi in which their mummies were laid to rest. And in more modern times, among Mediterranean countries, cypress trees were planted in cemeteries as both a symbol of grief and a source of solace. So the next question might be, okay, great, it sounds like a good one. I know I need it or want to have it in my little toolkit. So how do I use it? If you don't remember the point that I'm about to show you, there's always a very easy way to work with any oil, which is just to put a drop in the palm of your hand. I'm going to do it right now on myself. So I just put a drop. If you have an oil and you want to do it, you can do that now too. I put a drop in the palm of my hand, and then I just rub together and then just cup and inhale. And you can do that 3 deep inhalations. And with each one, you're going to notice a shift in yourself. Again, you can do this to yourself and you'll be treating the entire room and the entire field. And you can also do it for the person who's making their transition. So that's one. And another way is by placing it on this point, lung 1. Can you see lung 1 on the screen?
I don't see lung 1.
Okay, I probably have to just do a new share. And there we go. How's that?
Yeah.
So this is point lung 1, and this is actually the first point. This is the first point in the meridian system of energy movement that is activated when a baby's born. So when a baby's born and takes its first breath, the lung meridian activates. The first point on the lung meridian activates, and then the meridian circulation opens up. And their meridian circulation is then active until they transition. And so we're adding cypress to this point of lung 1 that is symbolic of both our entry into life and our exit out of life. And incidentally, it's also a very powerful point for supporting grief resolution or movement of grief energy. And it can also help support breathing, which of course, in not all cases, but in many cases can become challenging as a person makes their transition. So it's as simple as taking a drop divided between 2 fingers, placing, if you find your clavicle and where your clavicle and shoulder meet, and then just slide down along your shoulder about 1 inch. That's lung 1. Don't worry if you don't know if you're getting it exactly right. Get this general area, you'll be good. And then you just hold with light touch for 1 to 3 minutes. In a couple of situations that I've been in with someone who's making their transition, this is one of the main points that I've used, and it's been quite helpful. You might even see and watch like the fear or the concern or the tension in their face or in their eyes lift or resolved. So again, they're still making their transition. They may still be in quite a bit of physical pain, but there's a release of a certain kind of bondage of clutching that will leave their affect and their experience. Okay, so that's cypress. And I can talk about one more if we have time, or I can wrap it up with a little summary. Should we do one more?
Time. I would love that.
Okay.
If we all would.
I also just want to say again that, yeah, if this seems like a little bit far-fetched for some people, like if it's the first time for them to hear about working with oils in this way, again, you don't have to take my word for it. Just try and notice what you notice. What is really powerful about end-of-life scenarios is that things tend to become really clear and really poignant, because all the crap doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like all the things that we kind of worry ourselves with or think about over the course of the day, when we're in an end of life setting with someone, it's so precious and so sacred and quiet in its own way. And so when we are in those settings and we work with something like an oil, your ability to tune in to the impacts of the oil are going to be more keen than if you were just out kind of in your day-to-day mundane, actions. Yeah. Okay, the last oil we're going to talk about is, and this came in my meditation this morning because I was really asking about these times, end of life in these times, which are quite unique in many ways. Roman chamomile. And I'm going to do a screen share. have to, here we go. Can you see Roman chamomile?
I can see it. Yes.
Okay. All right. So a couple things about Roman chamomile. It's a good idea to use it diluted. It's very, very strong undiluted, and it's also a more expensive oil because it's a low yield. So plenty of places will sell it at a 10%, which is what I recommend. Cypress, you can use undiluted on single points, but if you want to, you can dilute it. Roman chamomile, I recommend diluting. One of the hallmarks of Roman chamomile is that it supports the resolution of what we might call amorphous or ambiguous grief. And so we think, what does that mean? So amorphous grief or ambiguous grief is the grief that is hard to have resolution around because of lack of closure. So just an example, my clinic is in Kirkland, Washington, where I believe it was the first reported COVID death in the United States was in the town where my office is. And one of my patients had her father in a nursing home, an assisted care and nursing home facility in that town. And it was one that had massive deaths, massive COVID deaths, and they locked down the entire facility really fast. And not only was she not allowed to see her father, but they weren't allowed to have a funeral. They still haven't had a funeral. And I know that there are plenty of people that are experiencing this. So she had the normal grief of losing a loved one, but then she had the added layers of not really feeling like she can have closure because she didn't get to be with him. His health, he was sort of fine in certain ways one day, and then it just went into a decline, and then he was gone. And then she wasn't able to see his body, and she wasn't able to have any kind of ceremony or official ceremony. I've encouraged her to do her own. So this added complexity to the grieving process is very intense. That's an example of one in these times. Some other ways that this kind of grieving intensity shows up is when somebody goes missing in war, when somebody goes missing in general. If somebody's missing and we don't know if they're dead or not, where it can also happen in milder degrees where someone that we know we were involved with and we did not have closure around a disagreement, and then they pass. And so there's a lack of closure around that piece. Any place where the grieving process has a kind of void or sort of spongy, empty space where you don't know or you didn't get to have the peace that can come with closure, that's where I like to bring in Roman chamomile and the medicine of Roman chamomile. It particularly excels in helping us to find some measure of peace that evolves over time with the loss, where we didn't get to do it in the way that we would have wanted to, or where we didn't get to understand some things that our mind and our heart would really like for us to understand in order to have it rest, right? So with Roman chamomile, you can put a drop and do the cupped hand. Or one of the other things that I love to do with Roman chamomile, and I'll send you, Jeanette, a picture. I didn't pull it up ahead of time, the picture of this point, but it's very easy and everybody can find it because it's in your belly button. There's actually an acupuncture point that's in your belly button, CV8 it's called. And so you'll take a drop of the diluted Roman chamomile, and you don't have to dig your finger in there, just kind of lay your finger. So how I'm doing it is I lay this finger that would have the oil into my belly button, and then I put both hands like this. So I'm just sort of resting my hands over my belly. Again, you can do this on yourself in order to have some of the impacts or the effects that I just spoke about. And then in the case of you doing it on someone that's making their transition, where Roman chamomile is particularly helpful for the one that's transitioning is that it offers a sense of stability and even a quality of nourishment as someone is transitioning. Stability and nourishment. Yeah. And it might be interesting to think about having stability as you're transitioning. So you're actually kind of leaving the stability of the body. But for fear, certain kinds of fears to be quelled, people need to have some sense of stability, even as they're transitioning out of the stability of their body. Yeah. Nourishment and stability as people make their transition. So there's a couple of things here that I'll point out on the right. The Roman chamomile helps untangle enmeshed or codependent energy patterns within our solar plexus. So this can be really helpful when we're supporting family members that are transitioning, because we often tend to have our most enmeshed or entangled energy patterns with family members. So as it untangles those, the transition can be less unnecessarily dramatic. Yeah. I remember, just to give you an example, fairly recently, we thought my father was going to be making his transition. And my younger sister, she has a tumultuous relationship with my father and mother. And I called her and I said, I call her Chewy. I said, Chewy, I think it's important that you talk to Dad and make your peace to the best of your ability with him, because he very well could be transitioning anytime. And she said, he is not transitioning. And she got angry at him for refusing to sign a do not resuscitate form at the hospital. And so I was talking with her about, hey, this is about him. When we come into this life and we exit this life, it's fundamentally a very selfish act, selfish in the best sense of the word, because it's all about you. It's all about you coming in and it's all about you exiting, right? So one of the things that I worked with her on was using Roman chamomile so that she could untangle a little bit of her stuff from his stuff. So when we untangle our stuff from their stuff, all of that sticky or heavy drama doesn't have to be there. It strengthens and nourishes our center, helping us to create healthy and maintain healthy protection. And as we feel safer and more secure, we can acknowledge unproductive dynamics and evolve in more integrated ways. And my experience with death, even though we think about it in some ways as an ending, and in some ways it is an ending, it's also part of our own spiritual evolution or our soul evolution. And also it calms and regulates our nervous system and our emotional body, helping us to face shadow material individually and collectively. One of the things that I see that can create extra suffering or extra pain end of life is when we resist dipping into the shadow. We resist dipping into those things that we most fear or most don't want to see. And if we have a little help from an oil to help us just move into that shadow and through it, things can take on a natural rhythm. Because just like birth, and birth has a natural rhythm, death has a natural rhythm. It's just that natural rhythm can get choppy and interrupted when fear becomes the constrictor. So then, just in summary, to say that these oils, again, remember, they are first and foremost assisting you so that you can be present in your capital M medicine, and they help you find natural rhythms in this beautiful process, and they help the person who's making their transition to also tap into their natural rhythms in this process. And as you get to know and work with just a couple of key oils like this, working with these oils, maybe these points or this, and you start to experience for yourself the profundity, what's going to happen is you'll start dabbling a little bit more into other oils and finding that they each have their own unique way of supporting.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'm so grateful. And I
Mm,
have a question, if that's okay.
yeah.
So for my work, I know that it's helpful when I'm holding space for someone to clear my mind of the mental chatter.
Mm.
And I do that by like focusing on my breath or something. And I wonder when working with the oils, do you have a suggestion for how to kind of become more empty?
Mm.
A practice or a suggestion?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you may know what I'm going to say, but I call it the bergamot reset. And it's taking one drop of bergamot divided between two fingers, and then you place it in the upper crevice of the ear there. I can include the picture to put with this. So there's the upper crevice of the ear right there on both sides. And then you would just hold, so like this, light touch, and you hold for 1 to 3 minutes until you feel a shift. And that resets the mind, it resets sympathetic, parasympathetic. If you have any thought momentum that you're really caught in, it will help you to get out of that. I, that is one of the most powerful resets for the mental body and the emotional body that I know of.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and where do you have a few companies? And do you have your oils available? And do you have another company or two perhaps that you suggest that we can look at online if people
Yeah,
don't have a good
good
offering
go-to.
locally?
Yes, I know. There's a handful of really lovely companies that procure their oils from small to moderate batch distillations. I I like supporting small to mid-range companies, but I also see large companies, for example, like doTERRA, that's a multi-level marketing company that's large scale, that because they're large scale, they're able to do a lot of really good works in the world. So there's everything from larger scale companies to smaller companies. My husband and I have, because we live part of the year in Sri Lanka, we've been slowly procuring essential oils from, we started off from Sri Lanka and then from different places around the world. Our company is called Monara, which means peacock in Sri Lankan dialect. And so it's just www.monara, MONARA.org. And one of the things that I like about what we offer is we have the oils undiluted, and then we also have them diluted for use in aroma points. So if people don't want to worry about safety issues with undiluted oils or diluting their own, they can get them pre-diluted. Um, Original Swiss Aromatics is another nice company. Aroma Web has a nice website, and they have an oil company associated with them as well. Mountain Rose, I believe, is another one I've ordered from that I like. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will,
Mm.
I'll write them out in the intro to the course so people can have the links. And I really appreciate it. I know when I use your oils, people are always amazed by the quality and the scent. So
Mm,
I do love
nice.
Monara myself.
We also have a line that's created for children, as you know, when I was working with you in your kid parent retreat, and that's bluedolphineo.com. Those are great, all pre-diluted for kids. Oh, can I offer one more thing for a resource?
Yes, please.
So I have a YouTube channel. It's Tiffany Carole, Carole. And on the YouTube channel, I have lots of videos on aroma point therapy. So I just put a series of videos up for helping to support homeschoolers and parents or guardians who are helping with homeschooling. And the Bergamot Reset is on there. You can hear me talk all about it, things, the technique and seeing the points, etc. So check that out if you like.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to share this. I'm so, so, so thrilled and grateful that you were here with this beautiful wisdom that you impart. And on that note, if you don't have anything else, we can close.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you're watching later, just make sure that you check out all the resources. I'll be posting them, and we're so grateful for your time and the work that you're doing in the world. And thank you for being here.
Oh, I did just think of one thing more I want to say. Can I?
Sure.
I just, in your acknowledgement of me, I really felt that to acknowledge these caregivers that have made a choice to spend their life energy, your life energy with other individuals as they're transitioning. And like we were talking about before we started recording, it's unbelievable actually that workers that take care of preschoolers and young kids and people end of life are often some of the lowest paid caregivers. And I know that it can set up a dynamic of being overworked and underpaid and really exhausted. And then potentially over time, tired and resentful about it. So one, I want to acknowledge you for choosing to do this work. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this work. And also to, I don't know, just yet another level of encouragement to work with the oils, because I know that they will support you in so many more ways than I didn't even scratch the surface here of the ways that the oils can support you, particularly in your life path of doing this work. And I will even say that please feel free to reach out to me directly through our websites for a special coupon code, or I'll give you a special coupon code in case any caregivers want to order our oils, a special caregivers discount coupon code to support them in the work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye-bye.